Hey guys, Maven here. Now during my time in the WWE, one of my best friends was the legend killer, Randy Orton. In this video, I'm gonna talk about my first interaction with Randy, tell how we became friends, say what he was like backstage, tell some stories about me and Randy on the road, and why did we stop talking? So get in, buckle up, and take a ride with me while I tell you all about the Viper, Randy Orton. My first interaction with Randy would come at a house show. Now, I don't remember which one it was. It was the very first house show or untelevised event that I was a part of. I still terrified of the position. And at this point, I don't think I'd quite completely grasped just how much my life was changing. Going to my first house show or untelevised event would show me what the next 5 years of my life was going to be like. I remember meeting Randy, and he seemed to know it all. Randy Orton was meant to be a professional wrestler, and I knew that our very first encounter. He had come from OVW, and that was a developmental territory in Louisville, Kentucky. I was in HWA Heartland Wrestling. I had never met Randy until this very first WWE live event. And I remember even being classified a rookie, which he was, he had one of the best matches of the night. I don't know how confident he really was on the inside, but he looked like a seasoned vet from that first interaction. And I remember after both of our matches was over, I forget who it was, but somebody pulled me aside, told me a little bit about him, and mentioned, that's Cowboy Bob's son. And I was like, immediately my mind went back to the early WrestleMania days, and I was thinking of the cast and how he worked the cast, and this kid's a part of a lineage. That's awesome. It makes a little bit more sense why he's so damn good. He and I hit it off immediately, and it didn't take long before we found ourselves backstage and just laughing, cutting up, making jokes. We were around about the same age. I'm a few years older than Randy, but it didn't matter. We both found the same things funny. We both knew how lucky we were to be in that position. And obviously our careers would arc in differing directions, but for a split second we were equals, and we had the entire world at our fingertips and ahead of us. So after this first weekend of WWE non-televised live events, I would see him sporadically. He was still at OVW and I was still at HWA, and our paths wouldn't cross again until later down the road. We were both elevated to the main roster quickly. Obviously, with me, it was the Tough Enough reason. They knew they had to to get Tough Enough 2 out, they knew they had to put the Tough Enough 1 guy over, and I benefited off of that. Randy, on the other hand, he was elevated strictly off of sheer ability and just his ability to go out, and he was good. Like, he was just a damn good wrestler at that time. There was nothing he couldn't do, nothing he didn't get. So when I talk about how he's meant to do this, how he was put on this earth to entertain in a wrestling ring, it's because he understood and got the psychology immediately. My relationship with Randy, where we became friends and road partners, would come years later. I started, obviously, my career and was put on an arc a little bit different than most people, and they obviously wanted me to have success. So the way the WWE helped that success come was put me with guys like Al Snow on the road and Devon Dudley on the road. But once I broke my leg and the draft happened, I would find myself off of SmackDown and on Raw. Now, they had just split the two programs, the two brands, the Raw brand and the SmackDown brand. And when they split those shows, that meant that guys would no longer go to both. You would have a roster of Raw guys and a roster of SmackDown guys. When I came back off my broken leg and I would find myself on Raw, their goal was to kind of rebrand me. I think they wanted me to try to move beyond just being the tough enough guy, and the best way to do this was to have me out from under the wings of an Al Snow. Being that Randy and I were both on the main roster at this time, and being that I was now on Raw, we needed to find someone to ride with. A riding partner in the wrestling business it's an underutilized commodity. It's something that is so important. Why? You need to find someone who has similar interests. What do I mean by that? Similar interest in what kind of car you're going to rent. You don't want people to argue over, someone might want to rent a more expensive luxury car, whereas someone else might want to rent something that's a little cheaper and saves money. Or you might have guys that want to stay in cheaper hotels. A lot of guys would even split rooms. They would stay in, a few to a room just to cut down on costs. I completely understand it. Randy and I both, from the jump, agreed that we were fine with spending a little extra money to be comfortable. We both agreed, let's get nice cars. Let's spend a little bit of extra money on a nicer hotel. Let's not split rooms. Let's have our own room so we can go our separate ways at the end of the night. And, let's spend money on good food. He and I were both on the same page, and it's something that you don't think of, and I guarantee you fans don't even consider it. But the person that you ride with, very important in the wrestling business. Once Randy and I established we would be riding together, it was fun from the start. At the time, I was over 25, Randy was not, so it fell to me to rent every vehicle that we had. When Randy and I would arrive in town for a loop, and where most people had their plans already figured out, that wasn't us. I was going to the rental car counter, whichever one had the shortest line. Once Randy and I started riding together, it was a lot of times it didn't feel like there was even an adult in the room. But we got to where we were going. Sometimes we might have been a little bit late, or something might have caught our attention along the way. But in essence, we got to where we were going. By this time, Randy's ascent in the WWE, it had begun, and there was no debate, there was no question that he was a superstar in the making. And once we got to the arena, our responsibilities were completely different. Most every night I was going to be in one of the first 3 matches of the night, whereas Randy every night was going to be in the last match. He was going to figure in the main event of the show. That meant that once I was done, I had to wait for him, which I was perfectly fine with. Backstage, Randy remained the exact same, just jovial, fun, always willing and always wanting to have a good time guy that he started off as. He knew when to be serious, and he knew when to cut up. He got a reputation backstage for just being a jokester, being someone who liked to rib, liked to cut jokes on somebody, and it might have rubbed people the wrong way. There was an incident once when they were bringing a young lady in for a tryout, and she ended up working with the company for a few shows. Immediately, Randy and I, once we got to the building, we were either going to or leaving catering, and this young lady did not recognize who Randy Orton was. So she politely asked if he would take her bags somewhere because she had to meet Johnny Ace at the ring. Unbeknownst to her, she was at the time talking to the champion of the company. She had no clue. And let's just say this did not sit well with the Legend Killer, and rightfully so. And he told her, "You want a job in this company and you don't know who I am? Why would you not do your homework? Why would you not find out who the company's stars are? That way, once you get there, you're not left looking stupid by asking champion Randy Orton to carry your bag somewhere." He didn't take it well, and he felt disrespected, and obviously so. And let's just say, to show her place, something might have happened with her bag. Hey, I'm not saying he did or did not have anything to do with it. But what I do know is a few months after, he got a pretty hefty fine from the office. When he was telling me about the fine he received, he actually said he wished he would have did a little bit more. That was just who Randy was. You were going to respect him, and if you didn't show him the respect that he had earned by this time, he was going to get it one way or another. One time we found ourselves traveling, and rather than going to the next town the night before, we stayed in the town we were currently in and had a good time. And the next day when we got up, we got a little bit of a later start, so we had to get to a live TV taping of Raw. And on Raw, you had to be there at 1 o'clock. Well, we found ourselves getting there, I want to say around 3:30. Now, it wasn't as big of a deal for the show for me. I believe I had a match early on, a 6-minute match, could go over it no time. Randy was, again, in the main event. He had a lot more to worry about than I did, but he also played a bigger role in the show. When we get to the arena, did they get mad at Randy? They did not. They did get mad at me, however, and I got chewed out pretty good for it. But I've been chewed out before. I understood. Were we in the wrong for getting there late? Yeah, we were. But again, did Randy get in trouble? Nah, not so much. I understood it. I got it. Randy earned the right to be looked at a bit different than I did or than other guys did, simply because of his worth. He was worth more to the company because he was making the company a lot more money than I was. I got it. Being on the road with Randy was always an adventure, and it's one of the things that to this day I miss. That extended to our overseas trips as well. And on one overseas trip, we found ourselves on a plane that it was just the talent. When you're on a flight for a certain amount of hours, I'm not 100% sure what it is, but if it's over a certain amount of hours, they need to have 2 crews to operate the flight. This was an 18-hour flight. Guys were having a good time, maybe having a cocktail. A few hours into it, that's when guys would started wanting to maybe get some shut-eye, go to sleep. Randy and I were in the belly of the plane, but still great accommodations. Now, I wish I could fly like that every time. The fact that we were trying to go to sleep and hopefully knock off as many hours of this travel as we could, we were all for it. So we both ingratiated ourselves with one of the flight attendants, and talking with her for a while, she told us, hey, back in the back, since we have 2 crews, we actually have cabins. There's places, beds for us to lay down, and that sounded like a whole hell of a lot better option than where we were sitting. So somehow we talked them into allowing us to go back and get our sleep on a fully flat mattress, flat bed. And as they take us back and we look and we see these beds back there, we quickly found out that passengers going back to the crew accommodations was against FAA regulations, and we were highly encouraged to go back to our seats because we did not want what was going to happen if we didn't. Obviously, the minute you tell me FAA regulations, I'm back. And again, we get back into the States and I got another chewing out, and I don't know if they even brought it up to Randy, but again, I get it. It was just another situation where tolerance is going to depend on your worth and what you bring to the company. I get it completely, and I accept it 100%. The longer I found myself on the road with Randy, the one thing I can say, and the thing that to this day I still love about the guy, is he was main eventing, and as the years passed on, his importance to the company continued to grow, and everybody knew that he was a special talent, but he never in any way changed the way he treated me. He never big timed me in any way. And in fact, he always went out of his way to even try to help me. He would go to the writing team. He would always encourage them to use me in different ways, different roles. I've always thought that me being inserted into the Survivor Series angle in 2004 probably directly correlated with him encouraging them to use me. Because if you look at the participants in that, one guy stands out that doesn't fit, and it's not Triple H, it's not Batista, it's me. I'm the one that does not fit. Once my release came through in 2005, we would stay in touch immediately after, and actually he took a trip and came and stayed at my house a few days. We hung out, we went to the gym, we worked out together, we just continued that bond. But following that, we would gradually over time lose contact. And the reason is when two people are going in opposite directions, it just happens sometimes. Obviously, his career was still on an upward trajectory, and I was, scrambling, trying to find what my next adventure, what my next employment opportunity was going to be. I always followed his career, what he was doing, and when I found out that he had gotten married and had a family, and no one was happier for him than I was. And then I started hearing, that, oh man, and guys would say it just like this, man, Randy's changed a lot. He's not the same guy that you knew backstage. And obviously, with age comes wisdom, and with wisdom comes a tiny semblance of maturity. And a family has a way sometimes of maturing people. So I'm happy that he is happy. And I recognize that both of us have our separate lives to lead and our separate paths to take. And I never held any animosity or ill feelings towards Randy for us losing touch. Man, that's just the way it is. And that's just life. And sometimes you just have to accept the good. If you're willing to accept the good of life, you have to be willing to get through the negative and the bad. I do remember in 2009, I found myself in St. Louis. I was with a buddy of mine from the Home Shopping Network, Todd Newton. We were doing a motivational speaking tour, and lo and behold, just out of the blue, at the same airport at the same time, Randy and I would cross paths again. And we were both going towards flights, but we were able to stop and take a few minutes just to reconnect and say hello. And, obviously, just good, wasn't planned, but it was great seeing him at that time. And then again, off we went. He went his way, I went mine. I don't believe my wrestling career would have been as enjoyable if not for the time that I spent with Randy. I'm happy that he's doing well. I'm extremely honored to have shared the road with him. I will always wish nothing but the best for him. And the great thing about life is you never know what's around the corner, and you actually never know what old faces might one day resurface. Now, my time spent with Randy Orton, that wasn't the only influential person during my WWE career. In fact, to watch me break down my feud with the Dead Man, click the video on screen.